There's a lady by the name of Corrie ten Boom. Corrie ten Boom lived in Amsterdam during the time of World War II. The ten Booms, they protected Jewish families, because if you're familiar with World War II, the Germans would go into these ghettos and they would gather up all the Jewish people and they would send them to concentration camps. Well, the ten Booms said, hey, what can we do to put feet to our faith? Not just to say that we're believers, but really to stand on the front lines as followers of Christ, followers of the way. So in the back of their house, that's what they did. They would hide these Jewish families to make sure that they wouldn't have to go into these concentration camps, which then would entail their death, more than likely. Well, one of the informants kind of sold out the ten Booms and said, hey, this is the case. If you go into this back room, you go to this door, you'll find Jewish families that are there. And so Corrie and all of her family was rounded up and sent to a concentration camp. And if you're familiar with the life of Corrie ten Boom, you will hear the recollection of how during this concentration camp, not just her, but everybody that was there, they were used and abused. They would shave them bald. They would make sure that they would just treat them like animals, give them a number. You no longer were an individual, you just were treated like an animal. Well, Corrie survived in this concentration camp. And after she survived this concentration camp, she went out into the highways and to the byways preaching this message of reconciliation and forgiveness. And during the research, it just blew me away that here's a person who was surrounded by hate. Here was a person that if you would sit down and hear of all the atrocities that happened to her and the people that were around her, you would have the same question that I would have. How would you do this and not become hard-hearted and angry? How could you do this but yet still preach a message of love and forgiveness? And Corrie said this, that one time after she got done preaching her message of forgiveness and reconciliation, that she would either go to the front or she would go to the back and people would come up to her and say, Corrie, I don't know how you do this. I don't know how your heart is not hard, that you're not angry at God. And again, she would quote Romans 5:8. Well, I was an enemy of God. He died for me. Well, in one instance, she said there was an old man that was in the congregation that day. Corrie didn't know this as she tells the story, but he was an SS guard at the concentration camp that she was at. He may have been one of the very people that used and abused Corrie, that the atrocities that were going on was what he was in charge of. Now, could you imagine sitting in the congregation, sitting in the group of people, hearing a person preach about reconciliation and forgiveness and not harboring hatred, really, to you and the things that you did? So just like the other congregants, he gets in line waiting to talk to Corrie. Corrie doesn't remember this man. Maybe for him, he would ask the question, should I apologize to Corrie? Should I tell her that I am sorry for what has happened? Maybe the question was, is it too late to apologize? There's a song out on the radio today by a group called One Republic, and the chorus says this, it's too late to apologize. And church, I tell you, it worries me when I hear things on the radio that become a melody that we sing. Because when it becomes a melody that we sing, what happens is it becomes a truth that we live by. And so I wonder if too many people are walking around with the thought of, it's too late to apologize. It's too late. There's no need to apologize. Time heals all wounds. Out of sight, out of mind. So as long as I don't see the person and time has passed, sure, I may have offended them. Sure, I may have taken advantage of them. But it's too late to apologize. That's where we're at in Genesis chapter 33 when we see this encounter with Jacob and Esau. If you have your Bibles, go ahead and park there for a minute. In Genesis chapter 33, Esau's out hunting. He comes in grunting. I smell food that smells good. Right, we're familiar with this story. And he sees the food. Now Jacob's over there like, what's up, big bro? Yeah, this stew, it's your favorite. You want some? Remember, he's cultured. He's conniving. He's the heel. Instead of just being the servant, which we're called to be the servant, and say, you know what, you've been out hunting. I know you have the wild game that you're going to give to our entire family and we're going to be able to eat. Here, let me serve you and give you some stew. No, Esau comes in grunting. I'm hungry, give me food. Jacob's like, I'll give you some food. Absolutely. Give me your birthright. What? Again, we have to understand. The birthright, he's the oldest. Everything that his father has is going to be Esau's inheritance. Give me your birthright. Esau doesn't care, he's hungry. Birthright, I don't care about birthright, you want food. Sure, take my birthright. I'm starving. And it says in Genesis chapter 25, verses 27 through 35, that he sells his birthright over a bowl of soup. Now again, we look at that and say, you know what? Esau was a little undisciplined. He didn't have much self-control. Sure, I'd agree with that. But Jacob is setting in the course of motion this idea of being a swindler, this idea of being a supplanter, to take advantage by whatever means necessary. We read on in Genesis chapter 27. Isaac's eyes are growing weak. Isaac is in the waning years of his life. Remember, as the firstborn, there's two things you get. The birthright, which means everything the father has is going to come to you. It's your inheritance. It's your birthright, which was sold over a bowl of soup. The second thing is the blessing. That what happens is, when I'm about ready to die, I'll extend my hand and give a blessing from God. Genesis chapter 27. Esau's off. He's hunting. And so the mom comes to him and says, Jacob, go out into the field, get some of the choice game of the herd. We're going to slaughter it. We're going to take it into your father, and you're going to get this blessing. This is exactly what he does. A very good, obedient son. Why? Because he was going to get what he wanted. So he does that. Makes the choice soup, makes the game, he brings it in. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait a second. Esau's hairy and stinks. I'm smooth skinned and I like to take baths. Kind of a problem. Oh, no, not a problem. What we'll do is we'll take this fur here. You wear the fur, put on some of Esau's clothes, and just kind of grunt every once in a while. So he walks into him. Isaac's eyes are old. They're fading. And here's the conversation. Genesis chapter 27. He went to his father. And he says, my father. Isaac answers, yes, my son, who is this? My eyes may be fading, but my hearing works just fine. Don't sound like Esau. Jacob says to his father, I'm Esau, your firstborn. I've done as you told me. Sit up and eat some of my game so you can give me your blessing. Isaac's like, usually takes a little while. How'd you find it so quickly? The Lord, your God, gave me success. You see, now he's not only taking advantage of his father, but now he's taking advantage of the name of God. That's the reason why. Isaac said, does it look like a duck? Does it walk like a duck? Because it sure doesn't talk like a duck. All right, if you say you're Esau, here's the blessing that I'm going to give to you. Genesis 27:27. Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you of heaven's dew and of earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. Nations will serve you. People will bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers. And may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. Pretty big words. After Isaac finished blessing him, Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence. I love the timing. The depiction of what's going on here. The words have just been spilled. The blessing, you're going to be wealthy. People are going to worship you. If somebody blesses you, they're going to be blessed. If someone curses you, they're going to be cursed. And he runs out. It's like a good movie. Dun, 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 dun. And then walks Esau. And then Isaac's like, wait a second, hold up, because those words sound just like my son Esau. And Esau, yeah, that's me, what are you talking about? He's like, who did I just bless? You don't understand, like once the words are out of my mouth, I can't bring them back in. Who was that? Who was that man? Please don't tell me that was Jacob. Esau's freaking out. He did it again. First my birthright, now my blessing. Reconciliation, restoration, and forgiveness is going to trump anything that may happen to me. I made a bad choice. I made some hurtful things. I took advantage of somebody. And if that's the consequences that the law has been before me, I'm okay with that. It's too late to apologize. 20 years. I'm just kidding. Out of sight, out of mind. And so instead we live in darkness. And it's interesting. This week I challenge you to go home, find a rock that's been sitting in the same place for many years, and just kind of dig it out and pull it up. And look what's under that rock. Usually when you pull it up, you're going to see some creepy, crawly, nasty things kind of like skitter away. Back into the darkness. Why? Because things don't grow. Healthy things do not grow in the darkness. Things die in the darkness. It's interesting to me in the beginning, the very first thing that God created, God said, let there be light. Have you ever noticed He doesn't say, let there be light and darkness? He didn't create the darkness. He created the light. When He comes, Jesus says, let your light so shine before men, that people may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. What happens is, when we step out, because we've taken captive every thought for Christ, we're seeking reconciliation, we're seeking restoration, we're pulling out the rock and saying, you know what? As hard as it may be, I want to live in the light. I want people around me to live into the light. Jesus' whole message, Jesus' whole ministry was about love and about reconciliation. We saw that last week with Peter. He met Peter face to face and said, just love my sheep. This week the focus happens when we step out, because we've taken captive every thought for Christ, we're seeking reconciliation, we're seeking restoration, we're pulling out the rock and saying, you know what? As hard as it may be, I want to live in the light. I want people around me to live into the light. Jesus' whole message, Jesus' whole ministry was about love and about reconciliation.